Hey guys, it's been a while. A lot of things happened. It's been Thanksgiving, then finals week, and then Christmas. Then we're heading to New Year. So I've been trying to keep up with my reading plans, and it's been 2 months. So, anyways, I'm here to talk about the few books that I read, and let's get started with some philosophy. So, in our philosophy class, we read Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And it is in plain words, it's a parody, and it's in a format of a novel. And I will talk about why that is notable. Nietzsche's hermeneutics of suspicion really reminds me of Descartes and the process of, tearing down the entire bedrock of knowledge and trying to find something that we can build our foundation of our knowledge on. And the process of skepticism is what I want you to keep in your mind where you pursue your future careers. There are a lot of similarities with Nietzsche and other philosophers. And I talked about his connections with Kant and Descartes in my philosophy final paper. What I think makes him stand out from any other philosophers is that he is always valorizing the ludic dimensions of life, the playful, the spontaneous sides of life. So to Nietzsche, the spirit of seriousness is something people tend to value a lot, but without good reason. There is a fetishistic type of fascination towards seriousness, in particular, the linguistic sides, the linguistic marks of seriousness, as well as academic jargon. But there's no good foundations towards that. Why do we value the seriousness so much? Think about it. The worst critique or insult you can give to someone in academia is to call his or her work laughable. The word laughable just carries so much weight itself already that, if you hear that commentary on your work, it absolutely demolishes you, right? But take a step back. What I think Nietzsche wants us to think is that why so problematic with being playful in academic writing? Why is so problematic with telling a joke? And I want to think about this. So Descartes' definition of a god is that he's omnipresent, omniscient. He's capable of doing anything, everything, absolutely, whatever you can name it. So if God is in existence like this, then he must possess an ability to tell a good joke, right? But why is that it's so frowned upon in academia that you can never tell a joke? You can never not use a jargon if you want to sound like a weighted scholar, right? On the other hand, compared to being playful, using plain words in your academic writing, you can use all the academic jargon, notably the Latin terms, the Latin jargon. So let's say in philosophy, the field of philosophy, the word gravitas, you have to say it in a very deep voice, right? Oh, gravitas. It's just a Latin term that means seriousness of conduct. And that using Latin jargon means that you're a weighted scholar, means that you actually have some say in your field, that you're reliable. But why is that equation between academic jargon and so profound, so hard to understand, being equated to reliability? And that, I believe, is what Nietzsche wants to point out to us. Why is that such a necessity to be reliable in your field? And that's what I think is interesting, because no doubt Nietzsche's playful, plain words writings is a form of rebellion to this widely accepted norm that you need to be extremely serious in order to be reliable in your field. And not just philosophy. I want you to think about math or science. Economics, I'll be a little different, and maybe I'll talk about that in the future. But math, if you're able to convey something in an extremely profound way, everybody will think, oh, you are the genius, we can't understand you, then you must be saying something that is really right. But why? That is really problematic. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think that's why makes Nietzsche's work and his style of writing so interesting, is that he's trying to like fight the norms. Anyways, so that is thus both Zarathustra and Nietzsche's work. So another book that I read was from the Very Short Introduction series from Oxford Press, Very Short Introduction to Leadership. I finished that. There's one key takeaway that I want to mention in this video for myself to look back on, is that the task of making progress within a group does not solely rely on the leader himself or the individual. Rather, it's on the whole group. It's the group's responsibility to point out the problems or the mistakes. And why it is so problematic nowadays is people nowadays valuing the good and bad sides. You wouldn't really want to mention that. You wouldn't really want to be the person to point out where the problem is. But that is exactly how a group make progress, is to look at the bad judgments, to point out the mistakes within the bad judgments, and then improve it, and then start making good judgments. That's what the book points out, is that you need someone, it doesn't have to be the leader, but you need someone to point out that the group is making bad judgments. And that's a problem, is because no one has the valor to do that. So that is something to think about. And another book that I read was also from the series, a very short introduction to rhetoric. So ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos stands for character, pathos stands for emotions of audience, and then logos stands for logic. So that is very ancient stuff. If you're interested, you can just look it up. And the book really changes my perception towards rhetoric by redefining the term to the faculty of observing in any given case the available means of persuasion. So it is not about using beautiful phrases. It's not about trying to polish your speeches as much as possible, but it's about winning over audience. It's about pulling and finding and looking for the available whatever phrases that works in your best interest, and that's what rhetoric is about. So that's why I think the political sense of rhetoric can be problematic. So the book talks about George Orwell as well, and George Orwell, as you probably know, he attacks political speech a lot. He calls them the sheer cloudy vagueness. And this idea will come back to us in another book that I read. It's right here. So the more troublesome, in this book it says, the more troublesome a problem is, the more vague the leader should use his language to describe the problem. Do you see what the connection is? So the more vague the speeches that you hear on the television, the more problematic the more troublesome the problem is, because the leader itself, it can't define, or it doesn't know what to do with this issue. Orwell commented, he says, the lack of clarity is a product of insincerity, a gap between one's real and declared aim. So this divergence from what you really mean to this misdirected meaning that you want the audience to perceive you as is really problematic. This is why George Orwell is an advocate of plain speech, just like Nietzsche, because the polished, all the delicacy in the political speeches, it's just to make the problem vague so he can shear away from the responsibility. So the last book that I want to talk about today is the only physical book that I have right here, Shop Class is Soulcraft, by Crawford, and it's an inquiry into the value of work. And I really enjoyed it. I haven't finished it. I'm like 2/3 of the way in. And it talks about a lot of popular topics like education, college, what it means to go to college, and also the capitalism, consumerism, which really interests me. So there are 3 realms that I want to touch on so far. One is the idea between fixing something to buying something new. As part of the book, the author definitely advocates for fixing something, like using your hand, or the value of craftsmanship. Because in his opinion, fixing someone means that you're more adherent to the present, versus buying something new, you're more imaginative, that you're adhered to the future. So I have a quote right here on page 17, if you buy the same book. The craftsmanship is more possessive, more tied to what is present, dead incarnation of past labor. Versus the new is just a way of the capitalism manipulating you, because by buying something new, they convince you that it is your freedom. Buying something new, choosing what you can consume, is this type of liberty. But there's this really nice sentence that I want to bring out. Knowing the production narrative, or at least being able to plausibly imagine it, renders the social narrative of the advertisement less potent. Right, so the keyword here is advertisement, which stands for the attention-grabbing economy. Is that the capitalism wants you to buy as much as possible, so like the economy keeps going. And by keep fixing something, by keep staying to craftsmanship, you can't do that. If you don't consume, then the capitalism isn't earning money. So I just want to point it out that before you buy something, then maybe think about, is that still... This makes me think about an example in the book, is that if you can't fix a car, then it means that you're inadequate in the knowledge of cars, because you can't fix a car yourself. That's why the vendors convince you to buy a new car. And that is the psychology behind it, is that, I don't know whether I'm making sense, but if you have a broken car, that means you don't have the ability to like fix it, right? You don't have the knowledge to fix it. So that means you're powerless in that situation. But by convincing you to buy a new car, the psychology is to give you power by buying a new car, by choosing to buy a new car. So that's how they convince you to spend money on something that is new, versus fixing the broken car that they told you. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but anyways, that's just something that I want to include. And the second topic that I want to bring up is on page 65. Alright, so this enters the realm of music, to play an instrument versus to listen to music. Again, this is a contrast between whether you're free or whether you're not free. And I think the book's point here is that to play an instrument, you're in some ways, ultimately, you're limited. Versus to listen to music, you have this autonomy, you're free, you're given choices. Again, like you're consuming any products in the economy. So I want to so the example that they give was there's some limitations in the physical world. Like for example, if you're playing a string instrument, halving the length of a string under a given tension raises its pitch by an octave. And that's an example that the book gave. Versus listening to music, you can download whatever music anytime, anywhere on your music platform, and that makes the process of listening to music just instantly available. So that's the sense of freedom versus the limitations, the restrictions you have in playing an instrument in the physical world. The last thing that I want to touch upon before this video ends is the assembly line, which brings up the Marxist idea, the theory of alienation. So there's a contrast between craftsmanship, to build something, versus a rule-based making the parts of a product. And the first part, so the craftsmanship is the book's theory is that it's based on experience, it's based on expertise. So by working it over and over again, you know what problems you're facing and you know what to do next based on the frequent times that you've worked on it in the past. Versus the assembly line, you're just in charge of a product, like a product's part. You're part of the factory, and you can't really point out to a product and say, that is my making, because you're only contributing to a tiny, teeny part of that product. That takes away the need for your experience, your expertise, or your knowledge towards craftsmanship. And what you really are doing is you're part of a factory process. You're just making it like a machine. Anyways, I'll see you soon. Bye.